if someone was like, I want to work in crypto, what should I do? What I would tell them? I think I would tell them, yeah, something in like the current meta, I guess, like memes. Like you could launch a meme coin. If you're 18 years old and you're listening to this podcast, you can go launch a meme coin. Like there's a lot of space. Like the crazy frog, you can make a meme of that. Like you could work on that. It could become the next thing.
We're recording this slap bang in the middle of the election, so we'll try and keep it evergreen. But it feels a bit stupid not to kind of talk about it. Are we about to rip? Like Jack's just been taking me through how the US election works, and as a certified bean eater, that's way more complicated than it's in the UK. But I suppose an initial question, Jack, is, does it actually matter? Like 6 months time, does it actually matter?
Well, yeah, I mean, did you see Chris Bernitzky's tweet where he's like, he had the Kamala graph and the Trump graph, and the Kamala graph was like a dip and then we rip, and the Trump graph was like a dip and then we rip, which I almost prefer the like dip then rip situation if that's what plays out, right? I almost prefer the dip than rip, because there would be probably some like really good entries on memes if we dumped like 10% or 15% on Bitcoin, which is kind of where I think there's like money to be made. But yeah, I mean, honestly, like I think it's I'm not, I'll say that. I think it's possible that both scenarios are bullish. I think it's possible that Kamala is more bullish than Trump. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think we were saying yesterday when we went through it on round trippers, it was like, does Gensler stay either way? Obviously, Trump said he wants him out initially, and he obviously got that huge roar of approval at the Bitcoin conference. But
right,
I still think he's probably pissed off that many people now, that because I think it's more of an issue than kind of sitting president, I believe, but
right.
I don't really know whether.
Yeah, especially I think like the way I think about it for relevance to myself is like, as an angel investor, as someone who produces content in the space, like that definitely has more effect on the day-to-day. Like the regulatory environment has more effect on the day-to-day of working in crypto than like the whatever the president can do in like a larger sense. Obviously macro is important as well, but yeah, I mean, I don't know, man, Americans are bad at government, I know. But I think the president has complete power to appoint that, right? That position. Am I crazy? So I think he has no problem taking him out.
So we obviously met up in Singapore for Token. You've been doing the rounds. You've been doing this amazing podcast series called Decipher. You got a load of really, really, really good guests, and then me. Because you've had this like aggregate of information that I think you did over like a short period of time. Was there any, I suppose, major lessons learned, anything that really stood out, any key themes? Like, what have you took from that? Like,
yeah, well, I guess from like a podcasting perspective, first of all, the idea of like in-person interviewing, especially in a good studio, you know, with the crew there, like it's really good. It's really good for the content. It's really good for like the nerdy metrics of like retention and stuff like that. It looks good. It's good for your brand. If you're doing stuff in studio, people I want to be in the podcast more than if you're just like, you know, doing something on Riverside or StreamYard or whatever. So it's definitely like a powerful tool for brands. And then, yeah, the quality of the conversation was phenomenal as well. One thing that's kind of interesting that I was just thinking about now as you asked me that question is like, those podcasts were all recorded, during like maybe 7 days. However, as they've come out and they're still coming out, they have managed to be quite evergreen, which I think speaks to where we are kind of in the market. Is like, we're kind of in the same places where we were a couple months. Obviously, I think people were a little bit more bearish on before Token 2049. Like we had kind of dumped a little bit. But as far as kind of like the meme meta, as far as what L1s are kind of happening, stuff like that, we've kind of stayed in a similar place, and there hasn't been this kind of like drastic shift, you know? It's been kind of this kind of slow grind up, and everything is maintained kind of relevant. So that's interesting to think about, you know, relative to 2 months ago.
Yeah, and was there anyone? Because obviously at Santi, like see, like you had like a whole host of guests. Obviously Murad, that I've got a few questions on later. But was there anyone that kind of surprised you, caught you off guard? Were they all typically as you'd expect? Because sometimes when you meet people that you'd listen to on other podcasts and stuff like that, it's a total different dynamic.
Yeah. No, that's a good question. Hasib was really good to talk to. I had a phenomenal conversation. I didn't think I was going to be able to land the interview. I was like nervous as hell. Hasib Waltz is in there. And like I had scheduled a different podcast. Actually, his assistant had emailed me earlier that day to say he had canceled. Then Hasib walks in. He's like, "Hey, yeah, I'm Hasib," blah blah. And it ended up being a really cool conversation, even broader than crypto. And I didn't know he actually had worked for Naval at like Naval's crypto fund.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I had no idea about that, which I missed in my interview prep, I guess. But that's crazy because Naval is like one of the people that got me to think about content as leverage and to think about building an online brand. But he's shorter than I expected, so that's one thing. Yeah, and then I guess the biggest like revelation was the Murad podcast, which did huge things for me. It got me sponsors. Like it just brought the podcast from kind of like nothing to something essentially.
Yep.
That podcast, like Murad was not as heavy in the info cycle as he was. Like he was just starting to build out that thesis when I invited him on the podcast. And then he did the Toga 2049 talk, which blew up. And then I was kind of the first podcast. Yeah, I was kind of the first podcast, Blockworks had a podcast with him, but it didn't kind of hit the crypto Twitter sphere in the same way that my interview did, which was phenomenal. And I was like refreshing the YouTube account. It was so crazy. So yeah, that was a fun interview. And like honestly, it changed my perception of memes and the way I think about memes quite a bit. And I think Murad's like absolutely right in a lot of parts of his thesis. And I think like, yeah, Memecoins super cycle. It's happening.
Yeah. Do you think he truly believes what he says? Being in the room with him?
Yeah, I think he's 100% genuine. To be honest, I know I don't know. He had his Bitcoin thing, and he was like super Bitcoin maxi, and then he was doing the STFX thing, which I know some people have some hard feelings about how that kind of played out and stuff. So I mean, he has a history in this space of saying stuff and taking a really strong stance on Bitcoin and then on like SocialFi, and then it not playing out 100%. But I think like he is well intentioned. I think he does believe in the coins he holds. I think he's a whole layer more strategic than people imagine. Like I think he picked SPX for a very, very specific reason. And I think he laid out his list of like the top memes for a specific reason. But I think in general, like he's well intentioned and he's genuine.
So which aspects of the thesis do you subscribe to? From my perspective, the idea that people are completely sick of, I suppose, these people sitting on the high horse and telling people which coins people should and shouldn't buy. And it's usually the coins that they've already had prior private round allocation to. So people have kind of revolted against that, and then that's why you're seeing what we're seeing in the kind of shitcoin arena. And like I completely subscribe to that. There's a few parts that I'm just a bit like, maybe not. But yeah, is there anything that stands out with regards to what you were saying that like really resonates, and maybe anything that's you're not entirely sure on?
Yeah, I mean, I think like I'm not entirely 100% bullish on all of his picks. There are some of his picks that I am very bullish on. And then the idea that like people are going to step away from like the day-to-day shitcoin trenches and go to like long-term, culty behavior. I think the shitcoin trenches are always going to exist. And like, I mean, look at today, right? There's like, JD Vance's dog or whatever is pumping. I think that there will be like new communities that pop up and new like cult-like communities that pop up. The idea of cult has been like so like oversaturated right now. Everyone's like, oh, I see a cult. You're in like a shitcoin telegram that has 10K, you know, a 10K market cap, and they're like, oh, strong cult vibes here. Like, no, dude. But I think there are like, you can definitely see like strong communities. I think the idea of having a thesis around a meme, that makes a lot of sense. And like, people should think much more about that than they're currently thinking. You know, like here's an example: is like Mudang. You know, I think the life cycle of Mudang is probably limited in attention, where maybe something like SPX 6900 is more. You know, it isn't defined by like the meme news cycle in Instagram. So different kind of theses can play out in different ways. Yeah. Was there another part of that question?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. The other aspect of it is obviously do you think he understands the playbook of what he's doing? Because obviously he kind of had similar sort of stance, philosophies, and as I say, blueprint or playbook, however you want to kind of wrap that up. Like Bernie seems to be able to do it again. And is the hair leading into the Messiah complex?
Yeah, well, definitely. Like, well, that's one thing that I mean, I don't know, but I think it could be intentional. This idea of like meme coin Jesus, meme coin Messiah, you know, like because you saw the guy when I don't know if you looked at his like Bitcoin interview with Anthony Pompliano, stuff like that. He's like kind of nerdy, like a little more soft spoken, and he doesn't have the long hair. You know, he's a little more cleanly shaven. And then he comes on the podcast. He's got this super long hair, the beard. It's like, man, maybe this guy's like very, very, you know, carefully crafting his image. I don't know. I haven't met the guy previously, so I only saw for a couple of hours. But yeah. So that's him previously. I think it's conceivable that he's like, yeah, I'm gonna try to be like this kind of like spiritual leader. And talk about cults enough. I don't know. Are you going to become a cult yourself? Perhaps.
There's a really good 7-part series on Netflix on how to start a cult. And that didn't come out too long ago. It came out probably about a year ago, but it's the recurring aspects of cults. So it's the kind of obviously the extremely strong figurehead, like the collective belief around a specific idea, but then it goes into like the dark sides of it, where it's like exclusion from the rest of the world's reality and like kind of like cornering off their information from outside sources and like all this kind of thing. It's a really good watch on Netflix if you ever bored.
It would be good even for like shitcoin investing, honestly. I think the thing there is like a meme coin kind of can't conceptually be a cult to me. I mean, to some extent, right? And it can kind of have this like cult like kind of behavior, but you know, it's not like people are like living in a commune in, you know, Texas or whatever, you know, like waking up eating like weird foods or something, you know, because it's confined to the internet digital space. So like there are definitely cult like behaviors, but I don't think it's like this worship thing. The other thing that I have doubts on is like the multi-cycle cults, especially for the coins Murad pick. I mean, even Shiba, right? Like the only multi-cycle meme coin that there has been ever is Dogecoin. Shiba, I mean, it's still around, but it has like zero mind share right now. I don't know. Can a meme coin last more than a cycle? It seems like I think Murad's kind of stuck in the position where he has to say yes. Otherwise, he seems like he's kind of fleecing people because these meme coins are going to collapse at some point. But I think Murad kind of recognizes that as well. So,
is there anything out of that selection or anything you've seen from, let's put a date on it, like I suppose this new breed? So let's say the last 18 months to 2 years. Do you think there's anything that can carry forward? Is it a Pepe? Is it a ticker Bitcoin? Is it SPX?
Yeah. Like, Pepe would be a good one, honestly. I would when I, you know, just saying that, I was thinking like stuff like, you know, I don't know, I don't think he has Wojak on there, but like Wojak, Apu, Pepe, the ones that are like memes, pre-existing memes, those might be able to stick around. But I mean, if SPX 6900 has like a 99% drawdown, is it still gonna be around? I don't know, like a 99% drawdown and 2 years of bear market. It seems hard to believe that those people are going to still be like hanging out in the Telegram.
I suppose all will be revealed. So I want to kind of transition this a little bit because obviously we came in, I suppose, seriously creating content in this space a number of years ago now, which makes us feel old, particularly with what I'm seeing on the timeline is people not knowing who Kobe is, which makes me feel like
That's crazy.
ancient. How do you think like this modern, I suppose, this cycle's take on content and distribution is different to what has happened in 2020, 2021, or even if you were kicking around in 2017, 2018? Like what's changed in your perspective?
So, well, I kind of came onto the scene as like a threader, you know, and I remember like the first thread that kind of blew up was me talking about Danny Sesta's coin, spell, magic internet money, that like ecosystem. But yeah, the meta has totally changed. It's weird to see, or it's interesting to see like this new breed. It seems like the most successful content creators right now are in this like specific meme space, looking at guys like Rasmer, Thread Guy, and some who I've all chatted with to some extent. And they're doing like this kind of like vloggy style, you know, Zoomer, brain rot, TikTok memes, stuff like that. Which goes into the fact that I think you mentioned this on the podcast in Singapore, and I'm curious to see, you know, hear how you think about this now. But like this idea that the cycle hasn't started, and I think that it's possible that that is an indication that the cycle hasn't started in this kind of massive capacity, because that like really content is not doing that well in crypto right now. You look at Twitter followings, like look at I don't know what you were doing at the beginning of 2021, but like I bet from early 2021 to the end of 2021, you're following like 100x. You know, mine definitely did. Mine, you know, 100,000x.
Well, our account got nuked, and well, because it was originally me. My original account from 2019 to 2021 got nuked because I fucked up on the 2FA and they wouldn't let me back in. So I had to start again. But then that ran up to like 50K within months, maybe.
Right. Like you'd be hard pressed to find an account that has done that in the last, you know, few months.
Oh,
we're just
unless,
not like,
unless it's a Murad, like unless it's someone like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few. There's probably like, you know, maybe 5 to 10 examples of that. Maybe Rasmer is another one where in the last year they've kind of, that person has gained traction. There's probably some anons, right? Like base 16Z or something. But it's not like it was in 2021 where you could just kind of get into the content creation meta and you would explode, you know, if you were doing a decent job at it. So the bar is like way higher for getting attention right now. And I still think there's not that much attention on the space relative to where we were, you know, 2021.
Yeah, we were. Who was it saying? Guys, to the CryptoTube was saying like one of the, I suppose, YouTubers who he was watching who consistently was getting, I don't know, 100K views a video last cycle. They're just like sat stagnant at 15, 20, which is also like it's a fuckload of views, but. Like from where it was to where it is now is completely different, and I'm slowly coming around to we might be just getting started, like following this election being over, and we're slowly starting to see some internal metrics on specific types of content tick up. Like newsletter is doing really, really, really well, but that's obviously that's cast really wide, and I'd say that's probably top of funnel. YouTube on certain content is doing really, really well, but for the more in the weeds stuff, no one really cares.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like the Memecoin stuff does super well. And then like if you do something, you know, if I were to interview a DeFi, like if I were to interview Tetranode, and Tetranode has kind of fallen out of the mindshare, but he was on like Up Only. Tetranode was kind of main character for a little bit last.
They don't know Kobe is, they're not going to know Tetranode.
But if you, whatever, DeFi legend Tetranode, we'll say that. If I interview Tetranode tomorrow, like it would get, 2,000 views maybe, it's just not, it's not like what it was. And so that's either we're never going to get back there. The cycle hasn't started, or that type of like that part of the crypto ecosystem, like the DeFi in the weed stuff is completely gone, and it's just going to be Memecoins forever.
I think we've got bigger problems if that's the case.
Yeah, I get a little worried about the meme coin stuff. It's like, okay, yeah, I like to make money with meme coins, but at the same time, it's like if we don't have these products that like have this legitimacy to them and kind of attract someone who's not interested in buying like Pepe, like a traditional investor, someone who's investing on cash flow, something like that, I do think we have a little bit of a problem as an industry.
Yeah. So with that in mind, and obviously you do quite a bit of angel investing as well, and work semi closely to teams, I suppose. What's the feeling in the company speaking to these teams? Are they a bit jaded with what's going on? I seen a really funny tweet, but I shouldn't laugh at it. But someone saying there's a dead squirrel that's worth 6x more than our market cap, and we've been building for the last 3 years. Like, is there any insight there you can give?
Yeah, I don't know. There's some cool projects, and like, yeah, I'm gonna talk to P-Pods tomorrow. Like, that's a really innovative DeFi project that doesn't have a lot of mindshare right now. I think they must be discouraged. These founders must be discouraged. Plus, on the other side, we see founders that are like body engagement. Their account has like
it's so obvious,
1 million followers or whatever. And you're like,
yeah, come on. three likes with 6 million followers.
So I think, yeah, I mean, I imagine it has to be discouraging. I think the counter argument, which Shitcoin John kind of discussed this in a Telegram group we're in together, and he's like, well, if we're only kind of focused on memes for now, then the products, and this is a sentiment I've heard a little bit, then the products that end up succeeding have to stand well on their own 2 feet. Like, if I can't attract buyers as a meme of a layer one, or as like a meme of a DeFi project, which is kind of what Murad talks about, that DeFi is like a meme anyways. If I can't do that anymore, then I actually have to create a real product. So that's like the bull case. And I've heard that echoed out. And I mean, I don't know how bullish that is for the space, because there aren't really cash flows. Maybe Pump.Fun has cash flows or something, but, we're not going to see like, it's hard to imagine we see the DeFi boom. It's impossible to imagine we see the DeFi boom of 2021 repeat on current cash flows.
I think you might be right in what you're saying there, though, because maybe it just goes through this extreme contraction period for stuff that is just a product for the sake of being a product. Like what we're seeing an awful lot of, like I'm not going to name which L1 it was, but like one of their head of BDs was like, oh, you should optimize for community and something if you're building an application. And I was like, how about you just optimize for revenue and profit like every other company on the fucking planet? Like,
right. Or even
so far gone. It's like, fuck me, what are we actually, you're just building on a layer one because this new layer one's launched. Like, it makes no sense. So it might need this like huge like contraction and sort the wheat from the chaff and build from there, like for the products that actually have product market fit.
Right. Yeah, I have seen some, like Barachain, to be fair, is the example of like an L1 where I look at their ecosystem, I'm like, holy shit, like they're actually attracting novel builders. Where the meta, the L1 meta of like, we're gonna give out 100 million, we're gonna launch our L1, we're gonna be worth $10 billion, we're gonna raise our ecosystem round, and we're gonna like have a DEX, a lending platform, a consumer app, blah, blah, blah. That's over. Like no one's gonna be able to make money that way. And I think L1s realize that, but I think it does put them in a tough spot, especially when they've raised that whatever $1 billion valuation.
Yeah, and I think I completely agree with what you're saying on the Barachain thing, because the issue is when you go to these new ecosystems, it's the same casino as you've seen somewhere else, and everyone knows how to maximize and extract the most amount of value. But then what you're saying with Barachain, and I completely agree, is there's going to be new games to be played that people haven't really figured out yet. Novel apps, so you have to go. The reason you'd have to go to you'd have to get onto Barachain to use this specific novel app that everyone wants to use, like in a hypothetical situation, is because you can't really get it anywhere else. So you kind of get the user attention and stickiness off the back of it, which is really cool. The composability across certain apps, I've seen some of these kind of yield flywheels as well,
right,
from like Yeats and stuff like that, and people are gonna have to get their head around that quite early, because there's gonna be some smart fucking cats over there that figure it all out and soak up all the yield. But yeah, I completely agree. And what do you think do you think teams can use memes as a Trojan horse for the products that aren't getting product market fit, and then just use it as like a case study and then build out the product they actually want? Or do you think they should like stick or twist effectively?
Yeah. I kind of don't like, for whatever reason, I don't like that idea of like building a meme and launching a product off the back of the meme, because I think people are well, to go back a little bit, I think we have to remember that price drives narrative, and that's why memes are where they are today. And the advantage there is, like, if a DeFi product, like if Pump.fund, for example, could implement like a buyback and burn revenue, people, same with some yield, novel yield mechanic, or like even P pods, right? P's, the token is deflationary. Like if they can create price appreciation just through the natural activity of the product, for the token, then those tokens become attractive to buy again. But right now the game is like, these tokens don't need to move, compared to, the dead squirrel. So, what are you going to do? Like, there's no real option.
You touched on a good point there. I personally think teams are too quickly to go to like a revenue style model with a token before they've actually got meaningful traction. And I think it's like so ingrained in the space to have like utility or whatever the fuck. But there's probably a handful of products that actually make sense for that. Do you think tokens should just be free floating and do nothing, or do you think that it's like case by case basis and there's only a select few? Or
yeah, that's a good question. I mean, like, you look at Pump.fund, right? I think they confirmed that they're going to launch a token, but if you're printing $90 million a year or whatever, like, why are you going to have a token? And I actually, like, I used to think about, I like the idea of an on-chain business that doesn't have a token. Like, that's cool to me. And they've existed before Pump.fund. Like, token launches there are token products that like help launch tokens that used to do this. I don't know if any of them had like meaningful cash flows, but I like that idea of like a company that is on chain and is like self-sufficient, right? Doesn't need a token. Like, founders would just want to print cash flows. That's cool. Yeah, I don't know. Again, like, tough spot for founders. I think, we touched on Naval a little bit. He had a tweet the other day, which was like, the biggest problem with crypto is that tokens unlock too early or something like that. Like the issue is essentially that people aren't aligned with the right incentives for the long term. And I mean, that's a sentiment that I've become more and more attuned to. The longer I spend in crypto is like just patience. You have to have patience. And when people are chasing, 87x over 30 minutes, probably tonight, the second the election gets called, like, it's hard to say, hey, the people who really make it have been in this industry for like 5, 7, 10, 15 years. 15 years now, right? Like, Bitcoin the white paper just hit 15 years, I think. And like, people don't want to hear that, but you have to build for the long term. Companies have to be here for the long term. multi-cycle, you know, stuff like that. So
100%. So the are there any like impressive teams that have stood out on your travels over the past, I don't know, let's go like really small time window. Let's go 3 months, like anything around like the last 3
sure.
months.
Well, I mean, it's hard to call out any DeFi because there's just no attention there. I do like what they're doing at Dyad. I talked to Joey, the founder of Dyad, the other day. I think stablecoins are one of those spaces that you know, could use innovation, and like you can imagine people using a high yield stablecoin still. It's like a DeFi product that kind of fits with the themes of today and could have like real product market fit. Yeah, Peapod Finance is another one I'm interested in. I just shouted them out. There's some stuff on Berachain, like I forget what the options. There's like an options
IPX.
on Berachain. Yeah, that's interesting to me. I saw another project, Variational, that has like perps for everything, and I know that's not an original idea, but something like that, that's an interesting project to me. I mean, Ox.Fun really is the first one who has like a real product with traction. So I guess I got to shout those guys out too. Like trading, you know, MOG on leverage is probably as product market fit. So there's some stuff out there for sure, but the bar has definitely like gotten a lot higher for what's kind of biddable. Maybe impossibly high in a lot of cases.
Yeah, like Ox was the one that's quite interesting because they've pivoted like 3 or 4 times, and then they seem to have found their niche with perps, meme coin perps. Like, and it feels just like a natural fit for where we're at currently. So yeah, I think it's and the actual UX and onboarding process is really, really good. We're not sponsored or anything, but it's some of the perp sectors on the market are absolutely dog shit when you look at onboarding and user experience and stuff like that, but they seem to have nailed it.
Hey, give me 1 sec. I have a
Yep.
recording error. It's because I don't know if you're seeing that, but
Oh yeah, it's in load disk space.
that's because I have all my podcasts on my tiny little computer. Let's delete some of this.
Don't delete anything important.
It's all on Drive anyways. And go to this, I'll fix it. I don't know, will it refresh there? I definitely deleted 5 gigabytes, which is what it asked for.
Sweet. Yeah, it looks like it's freeing up. Okay. You good?
Yeah.
All right. Sweet. So you asked me a similar sort of question. I thought it was quite thought-provoking. It's a little variation on this question, but if you had some weird kind of time traveling device and you could kind of tell your past self, give yourself a little bit of advice if you were just kind of first starting out with what you know now. Let's say there's like a Jack of 4 years ago or whatever it was. What would you be kind of telling them?
Yeah. And I don't know if this happens to you, but sometimes I run into these people that like really remind you of yourself.
Yeah.
And you say
A lot.
And you have some kind of strong opinion, like, dude, do not do that. Like they're like, yeah, like
some retard who's like overly ambitious.
Yeah, who's gonna take like the Mina protocol grant or something. They're like, yeah, I'm thinking about building on Mina protocol. Yeah. And not to call it Mina, but you know, some dead L1 or something. But yeah, that's a super good question. I mean, I think that the ultimate principle, like this is really how I came to crypto, is I was interested in crypto and I listened to the Naval Ravikant podcast about how to get rich. And he says like build leverage. And that comes in the form of like capital. It comes in the form of like digital leverage. And it comes, you know, there's several forms that it comes in. And you know, like a media following, a brand, that represents a form of leverage, because now with one podcast I record, I can reach thousands or millions of people. And And I think no matter what you're doing, you have to think about that concept of leverage. How are you going to like amplify the fruits of your work, right? With you, you know, you have your brand, you have your media that you put out, you have the people that are working under you, you have capital working for you. That's all leverage that allows you to kind of like compound yourself and grow yourself beyond, you know, working at McDonald's, you know, for $15 an hour or whatever. And that's like the core principle that I think remains throughout all of time. To get in a little more specific to like crypto, you know, the content space is really hard right now. It's really competitive. And the way crypto works is like, it's way worse than you think it's going to be for some period of time. And then it's like way better than you think it's going to be for some period of time.
Great point.
And this happens in the micro and the macro, right? It's like, I did not think the Murad podcast was going to do so good, but now I can get like some real deal sponsors. And then I did not think I was going to, you know, be at the pawn shop pawning my Rolex Daytona I bought with Memecoin profits, but now I am. And then you have enough money for the yacht and your Phantom wallet, you know, a year. Fingers crossed. That feast and famine is like a hard thing to deal with if you're going to choose to work full time in a space. And you talked about this in like the context of trading on the Decipher podcast. It's like so hard to be in the trenches every day and like be trading, and those up and downs are so drastic. And it's like you make a lot of money, you're on the top of the world, you lose a lot of money, you're like, oh my God, this is terrible. It's hard to manage those. I think, like if someone was like, I want to work in crypto, what should I do? What I would tell them, I think I would tell them, yeah, something in like the current meta, I guess, like memes. Like you could launch a meme coin. If you're 18 years old and you're listening to this podcast, you can go launch a meme coin. Like there's a lot of space. You know, what's the crazy frog? You can make a meme of that. Like, you can work on that. It could become the next thing. Like shitcoin dev is a thing that people
make sure you send Sia to
and then I like consumer. I like the idea of consumer. So some of these apps we mentioned, if you can create like an interesting app that people use that can cash flow or has some tokenomic model. There's a team called, what are they called? They're doing, I should shout these guys out because they're doing cool stuff, but Rasmer was on the stream. I don't know if you saw this the other day. They do some cool like streaming stuff, and they're doing models around streaming, how you can like pay in crypto or you can like interact with the people in crypto.
I know what you're talking about. I can't remember the name.
It's like only, I don't know what it's called.
Only one, is it?
Something like that. Sorry. Anyways, I'll put it in the show notes. But something like that is very cool. I like that. You know, building something that is entertaining to people, that attracts people. Consumer apps, stuff like wallets, you know, DeFi agents, things like that. I think there's a lot of space to build apps that people really use. Actually, you want to hear an idea that I have? It's like a tax wallet. So like I trade 100K in shitcoins, like 100K in volume in shitcoins over an hour with like a $50 bankroll sometimes, right? If I like, my idea is a wallet or like an app that funnels 10% of your trading volume to like a different wallet in Solana or USDC or something, so that every time I do volume trading shitcoins, like, and I'm like, you know, I'm in a death spiral, like some quantity of that will go to my like my backup wallet. And as long as like, it's like the same model as like Photon. It's like, as long as I can take a percentage of that, then it'll like accumulate in that separate wallet.
Yeah, you just need a smart contract wallet to be able to do that. So anytime it's realized profit, it segments it off and puts it in.
Exactly. That's exactly what I want. Someone build that for me.
But you're raising at 10 billion FTV.
This is for when I go down like my shitcoin, like today, this morning, I was like, I'm gonna shitcoin today. I put in one in a Phantom wallet and just like bled it out. I probably did like 5K in volume on that. If I can get 1% of that, yeah, hell yeah. I'd be back to zero. I'd be back to
God, you and me both. That's such a common theme.
And yeah, and then I was just gonna give a little tip on content. Content, the bar is so high. You have to do good content. I like the idea of content on non-crypto native platforms, so like TikTok, YouTube, even stuff like LinkedIn. Like, there's a huge opportunity. Andy from the Roll Up does a good job with monetizing his content brand, not through the content itself, but through like consulting services adjacent to that. I like that a lot. I think there's tons of opportunity to help out teams that need help in specific ways, especially marketing content, especially right now. But yeah, I mean, opportunities are abundant. Like, that's the something I try to think about all the time, is like, really, opportunity is so infinite in this like industry and in this world, that you shouldn't be squandering stuff because you're worried about the fact that like there is some limit on what you can do, or there's some limit on the capability. Like, the sky is truly the limit. You gotta shoot for that, and kind of any of those spaces I mentioned. I think there's like tremendous opportunities.
100%. It's extremely meritocratic in this space, and it's not kind of gate kept by any prior, I don't know, assumptions, like whether that be demographics, where you're from, how much money you've got. It's purely based on input and skill and how much shit you can get done. So it's a very, very unique space from that perspective. So completely resonate with all that. Final one before we wrap it up. What are you planning with Decipher? Is it world domination? Is it lifestyle business? Is it when do blockmates need to acquire Decipher?
Well, I do like the idea of being the #1 crypto podcast by viewership, and I think that it's gonna be like in the style of the podcasts that are most successful at the kind of mass media scale. Sit down, in-person podcast with the best possible guests, and I think it's gonna take a lot of time. So that's kind of my ambition. I also like the idea of like a lifestyle business where Decipher throws off a bunch of cash and sponsorship revenue, and I'm like doing an incubator and an angel investing with
and
that.
You're spunking it all on shitcoins.
Just like throwing it away on shitcoins every single day.
As soon as it comes in.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see what the future has in store. But yeah, we just keep at it.
All right. Well, I'll leave all the links in the description. Jack, thanks very much for your time. It must be getting quite late for you. Hopefully our shitcoins are a lot higher. Hopefully bump into you soon. Wish you were coming to Bangkok, but life gets in the way sometimes. And yeah, thanks very much, mate. And we'll see you next time. Over and out. Bye.
Excellent. Thanks.
Sweet. Awesome.
Quick one, nothing here is financial advice. It's for entertainment and educational purposes only. Always do your own research or speak to a financial advisor before making any investment decisions.